Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because Moscow is burning, literally. In a stunning escalation that's turning the Russian capital into a veritable inferno, Ukraine has unleashed a barrage of drones that's got Putin scrambling like never before. We're talking back-to-back nights of chaos, with airports shut down, fuel depots exploding, and Russian air defenses looking about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. This isn't just another skirmish. This is Ukraine flipping the script, bringing the war right to Putin's doorstep and exposing the Kremlin's so-called invincibility as the farce it truly is. If you've been following this conflict, you know Russia's been pounding Ukrainian cities for years, but now the tables have turned and Moscow's tasting its own medicine. Stick around as we dive deep into how these drone strikes are humiliating the Russian regime, why Putin's latest boasts are falling flat, and what this means for the future of this brutal war. Let's break it all down, step by step, with the facts, the footage, and a healthy dose of reality check. It all kicked off on the night of October 26, 2025, when Ukraine launched what Russian officials are calling one of the largest drone assaults on their territory yet. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, they downed a whopping 193 Ukrainian drones overnight. Yeah, you heard that right. 193. But let's pause for a second and unpack this. If Russia really intercepted every single one, why did airports around Moscow grind to a halt? Why are there videos circulating of explosions lighting up the sky over the capital? Take a look at this map right here. It's showing the flight paths and impact zones based on eyewitness reports and open-source intelligence. Drones swarmed in from multiple directions, targeting key infrastructure like fuel storage facilities and military installations. One hit a major depot in the Moscow region, sending plumes of black smoke billowing into the air. Debris? Sure, that's the official line from the Kremlin. All drones were shot down, and any damage is from falling wreckage. But come on, folks, if drone scraps alone can torch a fuel depot and cause widespread blackouts, imagine what an actual hit would do. This is classic Russian spin, trying to downplay a massive security failure. Now, contrast that with Ukraine's side of the story. Kyiv hasn't officially claimed responsibility, they rarely do for these deep strikes, but sources close to the Ukrainian military are buzzing about the precision and scale. These aren't your garden-variety quadcopters. We're talking advanced, long-range drones equipped with AI guidance systems that can evade radar and strike with pinpoint accuracy. Remember, Ukraine's been ramping up its drone production, thanks in part to Western support and their own ingenuity. Just last month, President Zelensky announced a new fleet capable of reaching over 1,000 kilometers into Russian territory. And boy, are they delivering. On October 27th, the barrage continued, with Reuters reporting that Russian air defenses were engaged for hours, fending off waves of attacks. Airports like Vnukovo, Domodedovo, and Sheremetyevo were temporarily closed, stranding thousands of passengers. Imagine the panic, sirens blaring, flights diverted, and Muscovites hunkering down in their apartments, wondering if the next boom is incoming. This isn't abstract. We've got amateur footage from residents showing anti-aircraft fire streaking across the night sky, followed by distant explosions. Roll that clip. See those flashes? That's not fireworks. That's Ukraine making its point. But here's where it gets really embarrassing for Putin. For the second night in a row, on October 28th, Ukraine targeted Moscow again. Russian state media claims they shot down dozens more drones, but independent reports from outlets like Radio Free Europe paint a different picture. Multiple hits on western Russian regions, including the capital area. One strike reportedly damaged a high-rise in the suburbs, with shards of glass and twisted metal scattered across the streets. The mayor of Moscow even issued alerts, urging citizens to stay indoors. Think about the irony here. Putin, the self-proclaimed strongman who's spent billions on S-400 systems and hypersonic missiles, can't even protect his own backyard. He's pulling air defenses from frontline positions in Ukraine to fortify Moscow, leaving troops exposed on the battlefield. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul, except Peter's the Russian army getting hammered in Donbass. And speaking of the Air Force, Sources indicate that Russian jets were scrambled and relocated from bases near the capital to avoid potential losses. Echoes of past operations where Ukraine wiped out billions in aircraft. Remember Operation Spiderweb? Yeah, they're not risking that again. Let's zoom out for a moment and connect the dots. This drone siege didn't happen in a vacuum. Just days before, Putin was parading his latest unstoppable weapon, the Burevestnik nuclear-powered missile, in a desperate bid to intimidate the West. He claimed it flew for hours in a test, but experts are calling bluff. Nuclear propulsion leaves detectable radiation trails, and the U.S. hasn't picked up a whisper. Past tests? Failures lasting seconds. It's all smoke and mirrors to beg for sanctions relief, especially with his economy in tatters. Enter Kill Dmitry, Putin's envoy, jetting to Washington to whisper about this miracle missile while pleading for mercy. Actions speak louder than words, right? While Putin's bragging, Ukraine's acting, hitting refineries, disrupting supply lines, and now turning Moscow into a no-fly zone. Pictures emerging show machine guns mounted on trucks outside the Kremlin, conscripts scanning the skies like it's World War II. Paranoia much? Even Russian pilots don't trust their own defenses, evacuating Su-35s and Tu-95s at the first whiff of trouble. Smoothly transitioning to the human cost, let's not forget the ordinary Russians caught in the crossfire. Moscow's 13 million residents are now living under constant threat, a far cry from the insulated bubble Putin promised. Social media is flooded with complaints, power outages, disrupted commutes, and a growing sense of vulnerability. One ex-post from a Muscovite reads, "We were told the war was far away, now it's overhead." Contrast this with Ukraine, where civilians have endured relentless bombardment for over 3 years. Kyiv's resilience is legendary, schools with bomb shelters, communities rallying, but now they're giving back, forcing Russia to feel the pain. And it's working. Oil prices are spiking as refineries burn, sanctions bite harder, and Putin's approval ratings? Let's just say they're not as ironclad as state TV claims. Diving deeper into the tech behind this, Ukraine's drone program is a game-changer. Models like the AQ-400 Scythe can carry heavy payloads over vast distances, outmaneuvering Russian jamming tech. Western allies provide intel via satellites, ensuring strikes hit where it hurts most. Energy infrastructure. Russia's lost nearly 40% of its refining capacity this year alone to such attacks, per industry reports. That's billions in revenue gone, funding Putin's war machine. No wonder he's fortifying the capital like a medieval citadel, bunkers reinforced, Panzer systems everywhere. But as Forbes noted, it's a siege mentality setting in. Drones are cheap, plentiful, and relentless. Defenses are expensive and finite. Ukraine's producing thousands monthly, while Russia's scrambling to catch up. Now, let's address the propaganda machine. Kremlin mouthpieces like RT are spinning this as minor incidents, but the visuals tell another story. We've got satellite imagery showing burn marks at targeted sites. Pull that up. Debris from downed drones causing massive fires. Please, it's a cover for direct hits. And Putin's response? More bluster. In a recent presser, he ranted about NATO expansion, echoing tired grievances from 2022. But as Gorbachev himself confirmed years ago, no such non-expansion promise was made. It's revisionist history to justify invasion. Why do neighbors flock to NATO? Because Russia's the bully, not the victim. As we wrap this first half, remember, this is Ukraine fighting smart, asymmetric warfare against a Goliath that's stumbling. Putin's empire is cracking, one drone at a time. Picking up right where we left off, folks, this drone onslaught is more than just fireworks over Moscow. It's a strategic masterstroke that's ripping holes in Russia's war economy and psyche. While Putin's hunkered down in his bunker, Ukraine's proving that innovation beats brute force every time. Let's peel back the layers on how these strikes are crippling key targets, why Russia's responses are laughably inadequate, and what the international community is saying. We'll contrast the bluster from the Kremlin with the cold, hard facts on the ground, and trust me, the gap is wider than the Volga River. Hang tight. This is where the real humiliation unfolds. First off, let's talk targets. These aren't random potshots. Ukraine's hitting where it hurts most: energy infrastructure. Take the Serpukhov fuel depot strike on October 27th. Satellite imagery from Maxar shows massive fires raging for hours, with storage tanks engulfed in flames. Russian officials, ever the optimists, say it was debris from a downed drone. Sure, and I'm the czar of all Russias. Independent analysts estimate this single hit could disrupt fuel supplies to the military for weeks, compounding the 40% loss in refining capacity we've seen this year. Contrast that with Russia's vaunted energy exports. They're supposed to be the lifeline funding this invasion. But now pipelines and depots are going up in smoke faster than you can say sanctions. And it's not just Serpukhov. Drones hammered sites in Bryansk and Kursk too, with Reuters reporting 1 killed and 5 injured in debris fallout. Wait, debris again? If fallen scraps are this destructive, Ukraine doesn't even need direct hits to win. Smoothly shifting gears, let's examine the airport chaos. On the 26th, as 193 drones bore down, per Russia's own count, major hubs like Vnukovo and Domodedovo slammed shut for hours. Flight Radar 24 data shows diversions to St. Petersburg and beyond, stranding passengers in a logistical nightmare. Then, bam, it happened again on the 27th and 28th. Moscow Mayor Sobyanin tweeted alerts about massive drone attacks, urging calm while air raid sirens wailed. Picture this: business travelers sipping overpriced coffee, suddenly bolting for cover as anti-aircraft guns light up the tarmac. It's a scene straight out of a dystopian flick, but real. Why the shutdowns? Because Russian defenses can't guarantee safety. Forbes reports Putin's fortifying Moscow like a citadel, redeploying S-300s and Pantsers from the front lines. That leaves Ukrainian forces freer to advance in Donetsk, turning defense into offense. Genius move by Kyiv, force the enemy to choose between protecting the capital or the troops. Now, for a stark contrast. While Ukraine's drones dance through the skies, Russia's Air Force is playing hide-and-seek. Open-source intel from Oryx confirms evacuations of high-value assets like Su-34 bombers from Lipetsk Air Base, echoing the $7 billion wipeout in last year's Operation Spiderweb. Why flee? Drones might be cheap, $10,000 a pop versus millions for a jet, but the risk is too high. Russian pilots know their SAM systems are spotty. Remember that errant missile that slammed into a Moscow high-rise last week? Footage from locals shows the impact: shattered windows, panicked residents. If your own defenses are turning on you, no wonder the brass is paranoid. Putin's like a king stripping his kingdom's walls to guard his throne, leaving 132 million Russians outside Moscow exposed. Cities like St. Petersburg or Vladivostok. Good luck, drones have hit there too, per Radio Free Europe. Transitioning to the bigger picture, this siege is amplifying global pressures on Russia. The U.S. State Department condemned the escalation, but reiterated support for Ukraine's right to defend itself, with new aid packages including more drone tech. Meanwhile, China's watching closely. Xi's officials are set for talks, but Beijing's not thrilled about instability spiking oil prices. Even India, a traditional Russian ally, is diversifying arms buys. Putin's isolation is deepening. His BRICS summit rhetoric about fairness and security rings hollow when drones are buzzing his backyard. Recall his December 2024 ramble, blaming NATO for everything, claiming pre-war bliss. But as we heard from Gorbachev's own words, no expansion promise was broken. Neighbors joined NATO to escape Russian aggression, not invite it. Putin's narrative? Crumbling faster than his economy, with inflation at 20% and ruble in freefall. Diving into the tech edge, Ukraine's arsenal is evolving rapidly. The AQ-400 and newer models like the Beaver drone use AI to jam-proof their paths, flying low and erratic. Western satellites provide real-time targeting, making strikes surgical. Russia counters with electronic warfare pods, but they're overwhelmed. Kiev Independent reports dozens slipping through nightly. Cost-wise, it's asymmetric gold. One drone versus a $100 million defense battery. No wonder Putin's envoy is in D.C. dangling that Burevestnik missile myth for sanctions relief. Nuclear-powered? Experts at the Arms Control Association scoff. Past tests fizzled in seconds. No radiation detected this time. It's desperation. Pure and simple. On the human front, Muscovites are rattled. Social media's ablaze with posts. Sirens again? This war's come home. Contrast with Ukrainians' grit, 3 years of hell, yet they're innovating, not cowering. Zelensky's approval soars as these ops boost morale. But spare a thought for Russian conscripts, poorly equipped, manning machine guns on Kremlin trucks, scanning for shadows. It's tragic. These kids didn't start this, but Putin's ego drags them in. Wrapping up, this hellish turn in Moscow signals the war's shifting tides. Ukraine's not just surviving, it's dictating terms, exposing Russia's paper-thin might. If you value truth over propaganda, smash that subscribe button. We'll keep debunking the lies. See you next time, when we track how this unfolds.